Today's video might quite literally save you 2 years of your life. This is because there is one thing, one reason that can ruin your relationship, even if you meet a man who has all the values that you desire. He's loving, he's caring, he's supportive, he has all the traits that you want in a partner. However, this one thing could still ruin the potential of you guys ever getting married. My husband and I have talked about this before, and we both agreed that this thing could have prevented us from ever working. So I am going to spare you all the pain and suffering, and we are going to get right into what this one reason is. Before we get into it, I want to share something that is quite insightful, and that is that your brain does not fully develop until you are 25. And if you look at the average age of marriage, you wouldn't be surprised to find it is after the brain develops, and there is a reason for this. One of the most important regions of the brain that does not fully develop until we are 25 is the prefrontal cortex. This area of our brain is responsible for long-term planning, impulse control, and emotional regulation. And this region of the brain does not fully mature until around the age of 25. So that means if you are dating before you turn 25, your brain hasn't even built the pathways and the neural connections to help support you in a structure like marriage, okay? You may be very impulsive. You may make decisions and not think about the consequences. You may say things out of spite that you don't mean because you haven't really built the full emotional maturity that your brain has the potential to have, okay? So this means that you might think you're ready for marriage at 21, and it might even work, but you are going to face an uphill battle because you're basically working against your brain, which is one of the most important organs in the body. You are getting into a lifelong commitment when you haven't even formed the ability to make decisions of that complexity, okay? So your brain isn't even operating at its full adult capacity, and you are deciding on the person you are going to spend the rest of your life with. This is why, although I'm totally on board for getting married pretty early in life, I would suggest waiting until you're at least 25, because this means that your brain is working in your favor and you know that you are making a decision that is in line with your long-term goals, and you actually have the emotional capabilities to support that decision. The second thing that can really contribute to whether or not a relationship will work is alignment. And I have gone through this myself. When I was in college, I dated a man, and there was just simply a misaligned readiness between us both. I was in the place where I was wanting to date, and I told myself I wanted to settle down and I wanted to get married, but I truly was not ready for that, okay? I was still in university, I was working, I was going to school full time, I had a research position, I was still maintaining my family relationship, going back and forth between where I was living in college and visiting my family. So I had a lot on my plate. And I went out on a date with a man who was ready for commitment. Like, he wanted to get married and have kids yesterday. And that put me in a pickle, because instead of just telling him, you know what, I am truly not there yet. I care about you. I really feel like we'd be a good fit, but the timing is wrong. I just forced it, and I tried to make it work because I didn't want to miss out on a good man. I didn't want to say, you know what, I'm not ready, and have the potential of us not even trying. So what happened was I got into a relationship that was way over my head, that required way more energy, attention, and effort that I even had to give. And we ended up just facing so many conflicts and challenges, and it ended up developing into a very toxic relationship. We shared similar values. This is the part that is so tricky. We had the same religion, we had the same family values. Like, he literally had the same idea of partnership that I had. But the problem was the timing was simply wrong. I had not even turned 21 yet. I had not even had the ability to go out and just experience life as an adult. And here I was pretending to be ready for something that required just a whole nother level of maturity and clarity that I simply did not have. We were energetically and neurologically in different life stages. I was at that stage of being a young adult where I'm in college, where I'm building my career, my skill sets. I'm still figuring out who I am. And there was this man who had already graduated college, had already gotten a career, had already figured out his skill sets, and he knew who he was. He already had his identity laid out for him. So I was, I think, 19 at the time, and I think he was 31 or something like that. And so, yes, we only had, 12 years, I think, apart, but those 12 years were a massive difference in mentality. When you're 30 and the guy's 42, you're kind of still in the same stage, right? You're in that adult stage. But when one of you has not even turned 21 and the other one is in their 30s, you're in just a completely different stage of life. And this was just a fact that none of us could come to grasp, because I kept saying, no, I'm ready for this. I'm an adult. I want to settle down. And he was like, okay, are you sure? Are you ready for this? Well, this is what I expect from my future wife. This is what I expect from my woman. And those were expectations that I simply could not fulfill. We tried doing couples therapy and we did a couple sessions, and I remember the therapist simply looking at us and saying, you guys are a wonderful match. And I think that you could truly build something magical once Rulla is 25. And she was the one who mentioned the whole brain and the prefrontal cortex. And at the time, my ex was like, we're not going to her anymore. She's like not on our side, blah, blah, blah. But the truth was, she was telling us the reality. She was telling us that my brain fully hadn't developed to think about the future, to plan for the future, to think about consequences and impulses like he did. And so I just simply needed more time. We might have been a good match and a good fit, but not in that year, not in that place. Okay. So I think that so many of us get with someone and we're expecting the future version of what they could be. Like my ex at the time was thinking, wow, what could Rulla be as a future woman, as a future wife when she matures? But he wasn't looking at me as I was in that moment. He wasn't realizing that, you know what? She's still technically a teenager. She's 19. She is still figuring out her life. And I'm sure if he thought about where he was when he was 19, he would know for a fact that having this pressure on me just simply was not healthy at that time in my life. No amount of love could fix that mismatch. Even if we had the same religion, even if we had the same values, even if we wanted the same things, we simply were not aligned in terms of our life stage and our lifestyle. So this brings me to an important statement. Timing is sometimes even more important than compatibility, because the timing of where we're at when we meet someone can dictate whether or not we are going to be a good match. We can have all the traits, we can have all the values aligned, but if the timing's off, let's say I'm in the middle of studying abroad, or he's in the middle of getting out of a divorce, we are not going to be in the space where we are actually open and ready to give and pour into this union. So you can meet someone who's kind, successful, sweet, emotionally available, shares your deepest values, but if your season of life is off, let's say they are ready to have kids and you are not, that can completely prevent you from ever being together. And I don't want to say ever, because you guys could potentially work out in the future, but then you are holding this man back from having his desire and dream met, which is kids. And it could be anything. Let's say that I get out of college and I want to build my career and I want to wait 5 to 10 years before I have kids, and I meet a man who he already has his career and he's ready for kids now, that can be a deal breaker because my desires and his desires eventually will match, right? When we're both ready. But right now they don't, because I need 5 to 10 years of time and he doesn't. Okay. So realize that it's far beyond just being aligned in terms of what the future looks like, but it's being aligned on the now. When I met my husband, we talked about what we wanted our life to look like now. And we both knew that we wanted a life full of travel, full of adventure, full of growth, full of date nights. We were not in that place in our life where we still had 5 or 10 years before we could do that. And this makes a big difference. I know that there was another guy that I dated in college and he was extremely well off, extremely successful, and he really wanted to travel. He wanted to travel the world. And I remember within our first few dates, he was saying like, what's your schedule like? I want to go to this country. I want to go to this thing. And at the time, I literally was in school. I had a job. My plate was completely full. I could probably travel only during winter break when we got 2 weeks off for Christmas, or during the summer, which even then I was going to do an internship. So even in that situation, like we were such a great match in terms of our values, in terms of the traits that he had, and we both really liked each other, but I wasn't able to travel with him. So obviously the timing was off, and it would make much more sense for him to meet a woman who can travel with him and do the things that he desires right now. If the season of life is off, if one is in planting mode while the other is in harvest mode, it can create so much confusion and sacrifice generally for one or for both persons. So this does not mean that one person is inherently wrong or bad and the other one is right. It just simply means the timing is off, and we just need to call it what it is and face the reality and the fact that this is probably not going to work right now. And that is actually a very mature thing to do, is to realize, you know what? I really like you. I like what you're about. But in this season of our life, I don't think we're a good fit. And that can save you so much time and heartache if any of the things I'm saying in this video are ringing a bell and are reminding you of your current dynamic with, let's say, someone you're dating or someone you're in a relationship with, and you feel like you guys are just on 2 different pages. This can be your wake-up signal to say something and to say, you know what? We only have one life to live. I don't want to hold you back, and I don't want you to hold me back. I want us both to get whatever it is that we desire right now. Not 5 years from now, not 10 years from now, not having to sacrifice on our needs or our wants, but actually getting the things that we want inside of a partnership. What I encourage you to do is to surrender to divine timing, because let me tell you, as a woman who in college, my number one goal was meeting the man, getting the ring, and all of that. And as you guys know, I didn't get married until 28. It just simply was not the season. And as much as I tried to do that and invest in that and pour into that, God tried telling me so many times, like, this is not the right time and place for you to do that. And I kept trying to do things on my calendar, on my schedule, on my timeline, until I finally said, you know what, God, I surrender to your plan. And that was, I think, when I was around 22. And lo and behold, right after, I kept praying on that and just telling God, you know what, God, I trust you to bring me the man. I trust you to allow things to unfold as they're meant to. I allow you to take the leadership of my life and to guide me towards the destiny that I'm meant to have. I surrender to you. I trust in you, and I have the faith that you are going to bring me the right man, whether it's tomorrow or next year or 10 years from now. I trust you. And lo and behold, it was like not even 5 or 6 months after making that prayer that I met my now husband. And once again, we didn't immediately get married. We dated for years and we enjoyed that stage in our lives when we were getting to know each other and really building our friendship and figuring out how to do life together. And so we had all those stages, and it was beautiful because instead of trying to force things, they just naturally worked out. And I didn't have to sacrifice a ton. He didn't need to sacrifice a ton. And of course, there is going to be some level of compromise or sacrifice in a marriage and a relationship. But if it is on a core desire or value of yours, like let's say my husband wanted kids and I didn't, to sacrifice on that is too extreme. There are so many fish in the sea, and there is going to be a fish that is 90% aligned with you. So you better meet that fish rather than the one who is only aligned 50%, okay? So if it's meant to, it will align. If it's not ready, forcing it is a form of self-sabotage. You're going to waste your time, you're going to waste your energy, your effort, and it's going to lead to heartbreak, okay? So I wanted to read this scripture, which is so beautiful, and it's, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. So just remember that maybe your season is next year and you want it so bad to be this year, but that is just not in the cards for you. Release that and put your trust in God and know that He is going to unveil your future, your destiny at the exact moment that you are ready for it. Sometimes God will withhold a relationship, not as punishment, but because He knows that you guys are going to mishandle each other and that you guys are simply not in the same chapter. One thing that my husband and I both know, and we've talked about this so many times, is even if we met 5 years earlier, it wouldn't have worked out. And this is because he was in his building phase. He was still sending money back to his family back home so they could build a house in India. He was still getting all of his ducks in a row. And I was in college, super busy, like I was telling you guys, with all these things. So we simply would have not been in the aligned stage in order for our relationship and our marriage to blossom. So we always say that yes, we are so aligned, but also timing had a lot to do with it. And the fact that we met when we did was honestly divine intervention, because had we met in an earlier date, we don't think that we would have worked. We don't even think that we would have chosen one another, because we would have just been in two completely different places and it wouldn't have been a fruitful relationship. If you are in a relationship and you feel tension despite deep love, despite aligned values, ask yourself, is it a timing mismatch or a character value mismatch? Are you expecting fruit from a seed that has not rooted yet? You might both be incredible people, but just not for each other in that season. So don't force a lifetime from a moment. Let God write the timing for you, and you'll be amazed at how easy and how it flows when it is aligned. I want to hear from you guys. Please share in the comments. Have you ever met someone who felt like the one, but the timing was off? Because I have been there. I'm sure we've all been there. I hear this story so many times, like he was the one for me, but the timing was off. And it's really just important to let go of that. And I know we've all experienced it, but just to trust that it all unfolded in a divine way and it wasn't meant to be. And if it is meant to be, then it will arrive in a season when I'm ready and open to receive it. So give this video a thumbs up if you needed to hear this today. Subscribe if you have not already. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.